Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to another episode of Her Inspired Mind podcast. Today, I have a very, very special guest with me, a good friend of mine. Monica Forte is a native of Lancaster County for 43 years, and she is originally from the Jersey Shore of New Jersey. And she is also a wife of Stephen Forte for 27 years. She's also a boy mom like me, of five physically here, and three are in heaven. And one happens to be a Lego master on season 3 of Lego Masters. And Monica is the owner of Making Magical Vacations Travel with 34 years in the industry and is also a notary of 25 years. She also specializes heavily in Disney vacations, but she can also book cruising, all-inclusive romantic getaways, honeymoon road trips, train excursions, you name it. She can directly help you with that. And she also helps moms with grief, and she has sat on a board with many nonprofits. She is a podcaster of the Magical Tomorrows podcast and is a networker and also an MS survivor. And when I tell you this woman, in case you couldn't tell by her bio, she is a very strong, resilient woman. And that's why I wanted to bring her on to my show. Welcome, Monica. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you so very much. I appreciate and you know how much I love you. So
Yes, yes. The
yeah,
feeling is mutual.
yeah.
Well, Monica, I would like for you to just share a little bit about your story. We talked a little bit. If you could share a little bit about your story,
Yeah.
because even though you're helping people, you're resilient today, you have experienced a lot of grief, and one mainly in losing one of your sons.
Yeah. So thank you so much again, Rebecca, for having me on. I am a grief mom. I have a total of 5 boys, 3 in heaven, like you had mentioned, and I have 2 physically here.
Mm,
Both of them have been my rock for both myself and my husband. The 2 that we lost early on were, babies in pregnancy.
mm,
So they both miscarried, both 10 weeks into the pregnancy, but still a loss. You
yes, of
know, so
course.
we still honored them. But our youngest son, Tony, which I have a picture of right here,
Oh,
he uh he was I think the hardest because he was 12 years old,
mm,
and he had medical issues from the time he was 6 days old. We went through many children's hospitals, both here in Pennsylvania and out of state. He was listed on a transplant waiting list for 6 years. Needed to be listed for 5 organs, of which he got 4
mm,
in Miami. So we had to temporarily move to Miami, Florida for about 18 months.
mm.
The transplant center was when we got that call in 2016. And I will tell you, I'm sure some of these listeners are polka dots, because we're
Yeah,
both workers. So some
yes.
know of my story and Tony, and had physically met Tony. Tony was very inspirational from the time he was 3 years old and up. I
Mm,
mean, this boy literally knew how to talk to people, and these weren't kids; these were adults. Like, he had this intuition in himself, and I think God placed that there with him to outreach to people and talk to them. Little did we know that as he got older and he got on the transplant waiting list, we were really heavily part of Gift of Life, the
mm,
organ donation sector here in Pennsylvania. And
okay.
we did speaking engagements at hospitals and churches and synagogues and high schools and even middle
Wow.
schools. And when he spoke at the podium, like, you could not hear a pin drop. Like,
Mm,
people were really resident on him, and just by his presence, it was just overwhelming just to be in that presence and see him. And God really had a hand on him. So as time had moved on, and he did very well coming out of that transplant. Like, Prior to that, he was not able to eat full meals. He
Mm.
couldn't swim, couldn't attend school. I had to homeschool my three sons that were here, um, plus running a business on top of it, and then doing all the nonprofit work that we did. I look back on it and I'm like, how did I do this? You
Yeah.
know, how did I do it? Even living in the hospital with him, because
Mm.
we never left him alone. We were always there.
Yeah.
And he had many lengthy and just lengthy and unpredictable admissions to the hospital. But when we went to the hospital, we were typically like gypsies. All the whole
Mm.
family went. We knew all the nurses. The nurses loved us. We were like a intertwined family of that hospital life.
Mm.
And a lot of the people there, I still get people to this day inspired by Tony and our family.
Wow.
And if you look at our personal Facebook page, we have 5,000 people
Mm.
on that page that know the story, know us, love us, and had followed through with us. I'm actually in the process, hopefully, of writing a book
Yeah.
about, because, and I've shared some stuff about that with you.
Mm.
God has really been a presence in our life.
Mm.
And he never, I was never angry with God. A lot of people said, well, Monica, you have every right to be angry with God. You know, from the time he was diagnosed to the time, all through it. My husband lost his job. We almost lost our home. You know, we almost lost medical benefits for him. I mean, that's all going to be in the book.
Yeah.
Uh, but at the same time, we never lost our faith.
Mm.
God was always present there. And where I lost faith was not so much in my faith, it was in faith in people,
Mm.
people that I thought would be here, not monetarily, but
Mm.
just being supportive to talk to and to be around us and share. And a lot of like family, for instance, started to dwindle away. Like they
Mm.
just couldn't understand. They just didn't want to be part of it, I guess.
Mm.
I don't know. But there was a lot of toxic energy from that. And I gravitated to my faith. I went to my priest, I talked to him, and we set the whole record straight. We forgave those people, but not in front of them.
Mm.
We forgave them with God Almighty,
Yeah.
and it gave me the freedom and the forgiveness that it was for me to be free,
Mm-hmm.
not for them to be free.
Yeah.
They have to be questioned on why they left and chose to leave
Yeah.
and not be part of our family. Because if they were, just like Tony was inspirational to other people, he would have been like that with the family,
Mm.
you know, and
Yeah.
that was their loss, totally their loss.
Yeah.
Um, you know,
So
he, go ahead.
I just wanted to quickly ask you, touching on those two things, how you mentioned that, you maintained your faith. Like
Mhm.
a lot of people would have been angry with God, or
Yes.
they would have been like, God, why did you take, why are you putting my son, first of all, through all of this? Why are you not intervening? He's an innocent child. Like, how did you maintain your faith through all of that?
I'll tell you, the very first night that we went up to the Penn State Children's Hospital, he was 6 days old. He was an infant.
Mm.
And the doctors couldn't understand why he was not expelling waste. He did everything
Um,
else. He voided well. He ate well at that time, but he just didn't have soiled diapers. And we
mm.
kind of made it a point to tell the doctors, look, there's something wrong here.
Yeah.
Something's terribly wrong. This was not our first baby, although the doctors and the nurses at the Women's and Babies Hospital were treating us like this. And we were like, no, there's something wrong.
Mm.
I believe this: God puts that instinct in the moms and dads, not just
Mm.
moms, it's also dads, that if you know something is wrong, you got to go with your gut instinct. You
Yeah.
got to go with it. And thank God we prevailed, because we literally had him at the Lancaster General Hospital, and the doctors there wanted to put him through surgery just to see what was going on. This was a general surgeon, not a
Mm.
pediatric one. Now pediatric doctors are all over through Lancaster here, but at the time, 18 years ago, they weren't. You
Mm.
had to go to a level 1 trauma center. So that would have been either Pittsburgh, out of that hospital, the Philadelphia, or Hershey.
Mm.
We had one bed left at Hershey. And that night, on the 6th day of his life, We were ambulanced up to the Penn State Children's Hospital. This was at 10 o'clock at night. I had just had him by cesarean, so I'm
Mm,
supposed to be healing. But, and I'm probably going to hit the nail with a lot of women here. When you go through something like this, you don't feel the pain that you're going through.
mm,
Adrenaline comes over you to
yeah.
protect, because I did not feel any of my incision healing or the
Mm,
breast enlargement. I mean, none of that, you know.
wow.
But God gave me the weapons of what I needed to do and how to handle this. Because the first question I asked when we saw the pediatric surgeon come, this was the head of pediatric surgery,
Hmm.
probably about 10:30, 11 o'clock that night. He came to me, he said, "Hi, I'm Dr. Robert E. Silly." And I grabbed his hand and I said, "Are you a man of faith?"
Mm,
That was the very first question I asked him. And he said, "I never had any parent ask me this, but yes, I am." Now,
mm,
whether he told me that just to give me savings grace that he was there, you know, could have been, but that
yeah.
man really walked with faith, because we had gone down to the Interfaith Chapel when they asked us. They said, "Okay, we have to take him to surgery. We got to see what we're going on." So we prayed over him, but we went to the Interfaith Chapel of the old hospital that's there. Beautiful, serene place. I have a picture of it. So beautiful.
Mm,
And he asked me, he said, "What do you need?" And I said, "I need my faith."
mm,
Because we were going into unknown territory,
yeah.
had no idea what we were about to face. We knew it was serious, but we didn't know how serious this was and whether he would have been alive through it. He could have passed away through it. We don't know. But there was, and this sounds like a religious joke, there was two Catholic priests there, a Baptist minister, and three rabbis.
Mm,
And we accepted them all because we
yeah.
wanted to pray on him,
Mm,
the doctor. And after we prayed, they came to me and said, "Can we just ask what your faith is?" And I
hmm.
said, "Well, what does that matter? You're all
Yeah.
here." And
Yeah.
I said, "Well, Jesus to me he's a Jew.
Mm,
So whether the Jewish faith accepted that or not, because you know some of them don't,
yeah.
uh, they knew where I was coming from." I said, "We honor Mary in our Catholic faith, and John the Baptist baptized Jesus. So you
Mm,
guys are all welcomed here."
yeah.
It was up to them whether they wanted to leave then at that point or not. Not we didn't
Yeah.
want to leave, but
Yeah.
as I noticed throughout the hospital stay, moving forward after the surgery, we were there for about 3 months. And so I was away from my sons that were here. They were
Mm,
4 and 2. My husband would bring them up on the weekends back and forth. Totally different lifestyle than I would have ever faced.
yeah.
When you sit there in that hospital day in, day out, and here's this infant baby trying to be
Mm,
healed, your mind starts to play tricks with you.
mm,
Now you feel alone, you feel secluded, you kind of feel like you're in a penitentiary, because here comes all the doctors and nurses, and you're sleeping there, you're eating there. When I
mm.
look back on it, I really gravitated to my faith. and
Wow.
and when we finally had our priest come up to the hospital, because there was local ones, and finally our priest came up, he said, "Monica, you know, you have every right to feel angry here."
Mm,
And my words to him was, "I don't have any need to feel angry here at all.
wow.
He's here with us. So why
Mm,
should I be angry? If anything, I'm angry with him. I'm not
mm,
angry against him."
wow.
Because we were now going into uncharted territory with social services here in Lancaster County, because the doctors were like, "Monica, you guys are going to have to go on Medicaid. You're going to go on assistance." And I was like, "No, that's not us." But we had to go through it. And
Mm,
you talk about a lot of denials
mm,
within the society of your mortgage company and the utilities and the daily living expenses. I have a folder that's probably about this thick of
mm.
denials from all those sources and resources,
Wow.
and there
Wow.
was none. And
Wow.
uh, what brought us through that was my mother-in-law. She provided assistance for us for a good 4 years, to medically care for our son up in the hospital. Without her
Mm,
assistance, it would have been a totally different story. We probably
wow.
would have been divorced. We probably would have had kids that were affected mentally and had to go through physical, with therapists and stuff. We're
Mm.
not the statistic that normally comes out of a situation like this.
Wow.
We are a statistic of being grounded in our faith, being grounded in our marriage, being grounded in our family, and everything else we didn't give a damn about.
Mm.
We didn't give, I didn't care if somebody wanted to come and take the house, take it,
Mm.
because our priority was the life of our son.
Yeah.
And if they wanted to have that gloat of taking the house, I actually threatened the mortgage company.
Mm.
And I said, look, if you don't believe our story, we will go down here to O'Fallon, Missouri. All of us will come. But when we do, we're bringing the national media with us, because
Mm.
you're going to choose what that's going to be on the paper for the next day in your local news. Are you giving a hand up to help this family? Or are you going to put them out on the street while their
Yeah.
child is suffering?
Mm.
You be the dictator of this. About a day later, because of that, I got a loan modificator on the phone, and they redid the whole house in a
Wow.
low payment and everything. So
Wow.
you have to be an advocate here.
Mm.
And sometimes that means you have to be distant from family, if that's what it means, distant from friends who don't understand. My clarity was my family, and thank God my priest gave me that clarity, because he told me, he said, you can't have it both ways. It's almost like serving two masters. You
Yeah.
can't serve two masters here. You
Mm.
got to serve Tony. You've got to be the priority with them. And what any other family says or does, you just got to tune them out.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
this day, I'm still tuned out from them.
Yeah.
And now that we, here it is going into our 6th year without Tony. He passed away in
Mm. I'm
February
so
of,
sorry.
yeah, thank you, in 2018. Those family members we still haven't heard from.
Wow.
Yeah. But
Wow.
does that dampen our spirits with them? No,
Mm-hmm.
because we've already wrote them off.
Yeah.
They thought they wrote us off,
Mm-hmm.
but in the evidence here, we wrote them off.
Yeah.
Now, do I have any ill will against them? No,
Mm.
I can't. I still forgive them, because I want to make damn sure when I leave this earth, whether it's tonight or tomorrow, we're never guaranteed. I'm going to heaven to be with my son,
Mm.
and with Jesus Christ, and to be with God. And then he's going to give me the answers to all the questions that I had back then,
Yeah.
you know?
Wow.
And what gets me through the grief, I mean, that's been a road, but we know where he is.
Mm.
We know where he is. He knew where he was going. He knew
Mm.
where he was going. There was no doubt where he was going. Um, his life was cut short. Yes, it was by the hands of a doctor that was
Mm.
in Miami, who
Okay.
treated him for something that he did not have following the transplant, because he did wonderful. Like, if
Okay.
you go on our Facebook pages to that time period of 2016 and 2017 and 18, you'll
Mm.
follow the story. You'll see the pictures. You'll see the evidence of what God did for him.
Mm.
And Tony never questioned God either
Mm.
about it. He was born into this. He had to wear a medical backpack. He was restricted, of course, but he never let that on. I mean, when you see the smile of him, this is him wearing that backpack,
So handsome.
you would never think that kid was sick.
Yeah.
He doesn't look sick, but
Yeah.
internally he was. He had a
Mm.
debilitating intestinal disease that was really debilitating. He lost his entire colon in that
Mm.
surgery. So he had to have a ostomy bag, which he was wearing there. Plus, he
Okay.
had to wear a medical backpack that
Mm.
had his IV nutrition in him. So he was very restricted, but we never let that, take hold. We
Yeah.
never lived that life here, even though he had to. We always made it a happy time going into the hospital. We
Mm.
we always made it a happy time here. We had 80 vacations to Walt Disney World in a 12
Wow.
period because of him.
Wow.
And because we homeschooled the boys, we were able to contain the germs, contain the environment. I mean, we lived isolated. We had to live isolated.
Yeah.
We had to wear masks when we went out. We did masks in isolation before COVID was a thing.
Yeah.
you know
Wow.
and we actually, people who when we were all going through that time period of COVID, contacted us because they knew we homeschooled the kids. We had to be isolated. So we almost gave them like a play-by-play plan and a book
Mm.
because they saw us do it.
Yeah.
And if we
Yeah.
could survive it, they could, you
Wow.
know. And
Wow.
but going through the grief, we take one day at a time. Sometimes it hits us. Other times we smile and laugh at the memories that we have.
Yeah.
I actually started a grief group called the Dash, uh,
Mm.
because when I came back from Miami and got some clarity and just it gives you clarity out of the fog.
Mm.
You lose somebody, especially a child.
Yeah.
It just wakes you up and you see life in a whole different perspective.
Mm.
And what you thought mattered doesn't.
Wow.
The
Yeah.
minute little things don't matter. What does matter is the time and the family presence that we still have with family here,
Yeah.
that we make most of that time because we know it's precious.
Yeah.
Um, like I said, I started the grief group. I do a podcast with the grief group. We bring up topics to talk about, like how to declutter your home. You know,
Mm.
I've talked to people who are in organizational, like cleanups,
Yeah.
asked them, I said, what's your take on people with grief and clutter? And
Mm.
never thought of that. It never came into their mind. They always
Mm.
think of clutter as being a lazy person, somebody who's
Okay.
right. And
Mm.
I said, have you ever talked to that person as to why they're clinging on to clutter? And they were like, no, we never did, because that's a personal thing. I said, if you look at why they are hanging on to clutter, it's because they don't want to move on from the family member that lost. That
Mm. Yeah.
they're, they're living in time from the time period that they were here.
Wow. That's
And
deep.
yeah, it is deep. And
Mm.
they don't want to move forward. They
Mm.
don't, if you try to move that clutter, it's very important to them. It's very emotional to them. It's
Mm.
not dirty clutter. It's just clutter.
Yeah.
And sometimes for them just to wake up in the morning is a step.
Mm.
It's a big, big step. So there's a
Yeah.
lot of mentality that has to go with it. So when
Yeah.
people are seeing loved ones pass on, like I saw this on Facebook. I
Mhm.
had a dear friend who lost a husband. He was 41, did not have any problems with him. They have a 9-year-old girl at the time. This was back in 2018, right after I lost my son.
Yeah.
So many people were barbaric to her.
Mm.
Like, time, you've got to move on. Time heals
Uh,
wounds. You don't say that to anybody.
yeah.
You don't, that too personally
Yeah.
with your
Yeah.
sister and your loved ones. You
For
don't say
sure.
that. We know that time will heal in our
Hmm.
own time, but we don't need somebody outside the family telling us when that time is to heal.
Yeah.
It takes a long road, and some people need professional help. Other people, I rely on my faith,
Mm.
and I got deep in my faith. If I showed you a bookcase here, I got so many books on heaven. I
Mm.
wanted to experience what Tony was experiencing.
Wow.
And I wanted to understand that and get more clarity as
Hmm.
to where he was. And I knew he was safe.
Yeah.
I physically want him here. Yes, absolutely. Um, but he's living free of all that medical stuff that he had to live with.
Yeah.
He walked into heaven without a backpack, without any means of medical nutrition. I mean, he's eating glorified up there. So,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
it's a love, and it's like a tug of war,
Mm.
love and hate, because you don't
Yeah.
hate he's not here.
Yeah.
It's just being selfish. But
Yeah.
um, I've been to several funerals in my clients that I do travel with. Of course, they lost loved ones through COVID. The most recent one was a hard one for me. It was a 6-year-old girl who passed away from cancer, and
Mm.
she had readmission when she was 2, and then she was diagnosed again when she was 6.
Wow.
Last year, I did their family Disney trip. They had 23 family members, and on my birthday, she passes away.
Mm.
And
Wow.
so I'm helping that family understand grief and go through it. And they see what we've done with my son Tony and how we deal. So that's comforting them.
Mm.
It's
Wow.
comforting them. I actually became a grief counselor through
Mm.
this back in January. My
Okay.
priest came to me and said, Monica, I send so many people to you, and have you ever thought about being a grief counselor? And I'm like, I don't need anything else on my plate.
Yeah. Yeah. You
And
do so much already.
right. But I looked at it this way too. My grandma used to say, if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans
Mm.
because he's going to uproot them.
Yeah.
If he led me to being a grief counselor to help people, like I help in travel or I help in networking or I help no matter what I do, even being a medical mom for 12 years, we help so many moms up there in the hospital. Like
Mm.
we changed some situations in the hospital for families because we saw the complacency of people who didn't understand this life,
Mm.
and when you put it to them, now that it makes sense. But
Yeah.
I mean, hey, if God wanted me to be a grief counselor, I am. you know
Yeah.
do I professionally go out there and promote it? No, because I only, if I see somebody going through grief, I don't even say, hey, I'm a grief counselor, I can help you. No,
Mm.
you want to go for coffee, you want to talk,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then if it comes up in the situation, in the conversation, I'll gladly do it for them, but I don't even have to. They
Mm.
already,
Yeah.
they know the empathy that I have for people is there. It just
Yeah.
depends on what the circumstances are and the topic that we discuss, and you know
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your story. I know it's only a glimpse of your life, but you are definitely a great blessing. Thank you for just sharing how you were able to get through that. And even today, now you're a grief counselor. Now, through what you went through, the impact you were able to make, even your son, even though he was here for 12 years, he made a big impact, and even till today. And his
Oh,
legacy will continue, and even through you. I know, like you shared, I think it was last month that you were
mhm.
sharing like some pictures and everything of him. Was that for his birthday or the
that was
anniversary of when he
that,
passed?
that was the anniversary of when he had the transplant.
Okay,
And
gotcha.
actually, when I do that, people will come to me and say, hey, I just signed up to be an organ donor.
Mm.
I shared a video that Tony had taken with my phone. A lot of times he would sneak my phone and he would
Kids
do,
love to take our phones, don't they?
sure do, don't they? And he did a little video and I found it.
Mm.
And that's a gift. I
Yeah.
call them gifts because I'm still finding gifts. I'm
Mm.
still finding them. And I found that video and I posted it. And
Okay.
so many people said, oh my gosh, Monica, the way he eloquently talked about organ transplant, he made sense to me. And I,
Mm.
so
Wow.
he's still making waves.
Yeah.
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 What I would tell people who have a loved one that has just passed on,
Mm.
whether child or an adult, and I was given this by several people when I was going through it. The first thing is be selfish to yourself. And when I say that, that's not being materialistic with selfishness, because that's not the good way, but take time for yourself. If you
Mm.
made some appointments with friends and family and you're not feeling it, you wake up the day and something hits you on Facebook, because it does with me. A
Yeah.
lot, a lot of memories, you know how that it'll pop up.
Mm-hmm.
I'll call people up and say, look, I can't do it today. The
Mm.
grief is thick. I can't do it.
Yeah.
And you got to put that out there. And grief happens not just with the mom, it happens with every family member that's
Mm.
immediate family, whether they're siblings or whether they're the father. They
Mm.
also go through a hell of a lot of grief.
Yeah.
My husband was very close with his sons, and the grief sometimes for him is just so debilitating. So
Mm.
debilitating. It hits him. Um, and the other thing I would say is when you go to funerals and stuff, and you don't know what to say to somebody, you show up and you shut up.
Mm. I like
Because
that.
what you say, you're going to put your foot in your mouth, and
Mm-hmm.
it's going to come off bad to that family member.
Mm-hmm.
So show up, make them a casserole, go over and mow the yard. If it's during winter time, use the snow blower and shovel out their driveway.
Yeah.
That's a huge gift to them that
Mm.
they normally would not be able to do, depending on how they're feeling. And just have an open mind and just listen to them and talk.
Yeah.
Just don't say a word. Just shut up.
Yeah. I agree. There's so many because I've had three losses of babies myself. And I remember, I think it was for my second loss. Someone told me, well, at least you already have one. Or, you can try again, and it's just like you're looking at them like, why don't you just shut up? Like
Get
it's
this?
better to just be present,
Yeah.
be there and just don't say nothing. I've heard too, like sometimes people could to not say, I know how you're feeling,
Oh,
because even if we've gone through similar losses and experiences, we all experience grief differently. Would you agree?
absolutely. Oh, absolutely. I have a mom who just reached out to me, actually, one of our RPP members um, reached out to me. And this is a mom whose son lost his life to fentanyl. Okay.
Wow.
She found him in a bed and he was slumped over. That grief will never leave that mom. It will never
Mm,
leave. That sight of him will never leave her.
yeah.
Of me and my son, we were in a hospital.
Mm,
And so they were trying to save him and they couldn't. And they called us in and they said, hey, I think you guys have to be here. And
mm,
we were just in the hallway, but
yeah.
they were there. And then, he peacefully left and we were right
Okay.
there, you know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
both of those losses are totally different. So to say,
Mm-hmm.
like you said, I know what you're feeling. No, I don't know. I have no idea what that mom is going through.
Mm-hmm.
Seeing her son there with and then she found out it was a fentanyl overdose.
Yeah.
That, and then I
Yeah.
have moms that have suicide.
Mm,
That boy, they're still investigating what happened there. There's suicide. I mean, that massive car accident that happened back in Lidditz when those
mm,
two kids were killed. I'll
yeah.
tell you a little story of them. My son, we did a lot of fundraisers in Lidditz. So they were
Mm,
there. Those two kids were there. We knew the
wow.
family. They knew
Okay.
Tony. Um, and then when Tony passed, they were at his funeral, but
Mm,
when they passed, we were at their funeral,
mm-hmm.
you know? And so it's, boy, I'll
Yeah.
tell you what, yeah, the families are, when somebody says, I know what you're going through, no, you have no idea. And that's
Yeah.
even true for people who are not going through grief,
Mm.
with all topics in life.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, because we all experience life differently.
Totally.
Um, and I would like to, if there's someone listening right now that has lost a loved one and is struggling, maybe they are angry with God, maybe they are stuck in a certain place, or they're trying to turn to alcohol or drugs because it happens. What kind of comfort could you say to them? What kind of words could you give to them?
I would say, first of all, they got to talk to somebody.
Mm,
And whether that's a grief counselor or somebody that they are close to that they could say, hey, I need to talk to and feel opened with. But I would say this when it comes to faith, you could use this as a comparison. Um, Jesus and God have a unique relationship because that is his son.
mm-hmm.
But nobody really sees this, and maybe they do. When Jesus wept about going on the cross and he sweat those bloods, sweats of blood,
Yeah.
that separation that he was going to endure going on the cross from his father hurt him.
Mm-hmm.
He knew what that separation was going to be like. And that's why he said, let this cup pass from me.
Yeah.
Then he said, by your will, it will be done. That was
Mm-hmm.
his father's will. So he had to understand it. He did not want to be separated from his father at all. And
Yeah.
neither did God want to do that to him as well.
Yeah.
The story of those two coming together, I feel that separation of a father and a son.
Mm,
Sometimes it chokes me up because that there, right there, if anybody could understand what somebody's going through with grief, God does.
mm,
So does Jesus. They both understand. And going through the clarity of it and stuff, there's so many passages in the Bible that I think would bring healing to people,
Mm.
because eventually, if you believe that in your heart that your loved one is in heaven, you got to have that faith that you're going to see them again.
Mm.
You're going to have that faith. And whatever took your loved ones from you, whether it was people, whether it was drugs or alcohol, you got to forgive them.
Mm.
Because God forgave all of us.
Yeah.
In order for us to get to heaven, we got to forgive. And
Yeah.
that's a hard word, forgive. It's a
Yeah.
hard word to give up. My
Yeah.
husband has a hard time when I say it to him. I said, one day you're going to have to forgive this doctor.
Mm.
And when he had this big wide eye open, and I'm like, you have to forgive her. He goes, I'm not talking to her. I said, no, you don't have to talk to her. You do like I did with family members back, 10 years ago. You got to put them on a paper and ask for forgiveness about what they're doing.
Yeah.
And I think the healing will slowly come and God will be there. When it comes to a spousal loss, especially a woman, I tell people, I said, well, God now is your husband.
Mm.
He's there for you. He's not only your eternal father, but he is your husband, and he's going to make sure that things are going to go as planned and as well as it could be. You just
Yeah.
have to have and learn to have that faith.
Mm.
Faith is believing without seeing.
Yeah.
You can't show up to faith and say, okay, show me what this is, and then I'll have faith. That doesn't
Mm.
work that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
And faith is a powerful thing.
it
That's one
sure
thing I cling on to through
is.
all
Yeah.
the losses that I've had within the last 10 years. I think within the same year, my dad passed away, and
Oh,
my niece, one of my nieces passed away, my oldest niece also, and being shunned from the church that I was part of, all in within the same year. It was tough. I had no choice but to lean on my faith in God, and that He was going to carry me through.
mhm,
And when people see me today, I'm sure when people see you and
mhm.
they see you standing so strong, especially the people that know what you've gone through, is a testament to the power of having faith in God. Like, we cannot endure, we cannot bear on our own strength.
No, you can't. You got to look at it this way. If you do that, if you're that type of person that thinks you have control and you could do it all, imagine an archer who has a bow and arrow, right?
Mm-hmm.
That bow gets pulled. That's somebody who can't let go of that.
Mm.
They're holding on. That takes strength.
Mm.
And it takes a big amount of strength. When I think about somebody like that, I get tired out because I'm like,
Yeah.
oh my God, if you just let go of that, just let
Yeah.
go, the whole universe will
Yeah.
open up and just give you clarity. I would say there's a lot of great topics on TBN, Trinity Broadcast Network. There's a lot of
Mm.
pastors on there. Um, and also Sirius XM. There's a lot of great pastors on the radio. I listen
Mm.
to Joel Osteen. You talk about
Okay.
a great motivator, and a spiritual counselor, but also a motivator. Tony met him. We met
Mm.
Joel Osteen, and Tony loved him. And when we were in the hospital, he would tell the nurses, "Look, my Joel time is between 10 and 10:30. You can come and get my labs or get something else before or after that, that would be,
Yeah.
I don't want to miss it." And
Yeah.
also we would read Jesus Calling by Sarah Young.
Mm.
Yeah. And then he would have some pastors come to visit him. And one of the nurses said, a priest is here, Monica, to see him. He's not going to do last rites, is he? I said, no, that's not why he's here. No,
Yeah.
they're having their man cave time. We would call it man cave time. And
Uh.
would come and talk to him, and they would come out of there and they were so blown by the
Mm.
the age of him and how he could just eloquently talk about Jesus Christ and God. Oh, yeah.
Mm.
I mean, and sometimes when the pastor was coming in there, and he had a lot on him. You talk about a pastor, you got people who are going through grief and going through so many different things. It's a big weight to be a pastor.
Yeah.
on your shoulders. And sometimes they go through this grief of not so much a loss, but it's a loss of understanding. Like,
Mhm.
who's listening to me? I've got all this on me. Who's listening to me?
Yeah.
But they would walk out of there and they thought it was like a massage therapy for them.
Mm.
They felt so relaxed and so
Oh.
that's what Tony would do. I mean, that
Oh.
he just had the ability to be that person,
Mm.
that person. And I think he got that a lot from me, because I do that with a lot of people too. Yeah.
Mm.
I could be going to a meeting like a one-on-one or with the dots, we all get together and have a connection. And I can feel pretty much if that conversation is going to go like it's supposed to,
Mhm.
or if they have something on them, you could read people. I can
Yeah.
read people, and then
Yeah.
I will not go into a conversation of, hey, what do you do? Instead,
Mhm.
I talk to them like, hey, what's going on?
Yeah.
Can you share? Can you share a little bit about what's going on? And then the
Mhm.
whole conversation changes, and then it lasts from it was supposed to be an hour, it goes to 4.
Well, God bless you for being able to be that person and to be able to even open up that kind of space for people.
Yeah.
And just to wrap up here, is there a way that anyone could, if they need any of your services, whether it's for travel, grief, anything that you provide, how can they get in contact with you?
I think the best thing would be to call me or text me.
Okay.
Email's hard because I'm usually with clients or out and about. So I don't really see my emails unless there's a pressing email that comes up. But my telephone number would be 717-847-7654. That is my local number for my clients and everybody. You can text me at that number, get a hold of me. I'm on Facebook, although I'm limited to 5,000 people.
Mm-hmm.
um, but you can message me on my Facebook page with my travel, making
Okay.
magical vacations travel.
All
And I
right.
do it too with a lot of families with grief. A lot of them don't, again, you got to be selfish to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them need self-care and they need that breakaway. I talk a lot about in my podcast with grief about honoring that loved one. Go back to the place where you had the beautiful time.
Mm.
It's such a healing for you to go,
Yeah.
and it would take you different. Like I said, we go to Walt Disney World a lot. I
Mm-hmm.
actually honor my son during the week of the passing of him in February when it's the Run Disney event for the Princess Half Marathon.
Oh, okay.
So it's emotional time for me, but being in that place where we had so many countless memories, it's also therapeutic.
Mm.
Yeah. And
I
just take
love
that
that.
time for yourself and just get off the social media. You don't even have to let anybody know where you
Mm.
are. And just get away and just have that one-on-one time. And if it's with your
Mm.
faith, it's with your faith. If it's
Mm-hmm.
something that's enjoyable for you, do it, you know. But
Yeah.
I would not let anybody dictate on how you have to do things and what you have to do.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
love that. Well, thank
Mhm.
you so much, Monica, for your wisdom, for your time. And I'm sure that many, many people, especially women that listen to this podcast, will gain a lot of benefit.
Absolutely. I hope. I hope.
Absolutely. And if you enjoyed this podcast episode, make sure that you share it with someone that needs to hear it. And if you would like for me to speak on other topics that you feel could help you, please send me an email at inspireherwithin@gmail.com. And if you don't yet, please follow me on Instagram at Inspire Her Mindset and on Facebook as Rebecca Fillmore. Thank you so much. And please also don't forget to leave a star rating and review. And I'll talk to you guys on the next episode. God bless.
God bless. Thank you. Thank you, Rebecca.
Absolutely.